Come on, let's do it. That's right. Welcome to another episode of Things I Wait For Every Year. And it's going to be a repeat. Most of these are because I do them every year, and the show's been going on for several years now. I don't mind repeating them. I hope you don't. So I was about to say, and this is one of my favorites, but I try to catch myself. I shouldn't say that. I've already told you guys about me and my old pal Tim in high school, sitting up in my bedroom, up all night, playing every Beatle album I had chronologically in a row. And then one dude would turn to the other and say, "Dude, what's your favorite Beatle album?" That's right. We were saying dude before Beavis and Butthead. "Dude, what's your favorite Beatle album?" Whichever one's on, man. So that's the way I feel about some of these dishes. So let's call this maybe the Abbey Road of dishes that I like to make once a year. I'm out front because we're going to go down to these front gardens and pull some stuff for tonight. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's do it. So, if you can see, this is where I had the garlic and shallots last year, but the beds were fertile, so why let them go to waste? Got some cauliflower, young arugula, supposed to be spinach in here, but my spinach, I never have luck with it. Maybe I just got a bad pack of seed. And here I did, we talked about this in the past, the three sisters, but there's only two sisters here. I put corn and a second round of zucchini. Zucchini in the back did awesome, ran its course for the summer. Plant's still alive, but it's not going to produce much fruit. And look at all these flowers. Now, it's already getting late in the morning. You can see them starting to close up. So let me get these now, because we're not going to cook them till dinner. I'm just going to put the camera down, I'll harvest them all, and we'll take a look at them in the kitchen. Let's go, let's go. Did it before, going to do it again. This might be the third time. I might have done this twice. Risotto con fiori di zucca. Risotto with the zucchini flowers. I just saw a little gnat flying around. If you see it, pay no attention, as the man behind the curtain said. But something new about this one. Let me tell you something. I originally got this from one of my favorite books. I've shown it to you before. We've cooked out of it, and I loved it. When I first got this book, it's here on page 128 with this beautiful photo. Risotto con fiori di zucca. Now, I've done it in the past. I think probably the first time I did it on the show, maybe I did it out of this book, but I did it another time where I won't call it an improv, I do all my risottos pretty much the same way, right? Onion or shallot in olive oil, translucent, add the rice, toast the rice, and then a little white wine, etc., etc. Well, this recipe is very interesting in that it has no wine, has no onion, no shallot, no garlic, all right? Which I find very interesting. So I'm going to read the ingredients directly out of the book for you. Now, it says 20 zucchini blossoms. I got 25 here, and that was a little overzealous because when I went to get my arboreal rice out, I realized I only had a cup left. Got to put it on the shopping list, and this is for 2 cups of rice. So I'm going to have to halve the recipe. I may use all the flowers because you take them off the stem, you chop them down. This is a case where you get rid of the pistils. So I'm just going to chop down what I have. I don't think you could ruin a dish by having too many zucchini flowers in risotto con fiori di zucca. But other than that, I'm going to do it exact. Butter. Book says 4 tablespoons. We'll use 2. 2 tablespoons olive oil, which is nice. I just got this Greek that I get, but since we're having it, I have at least a tablespoon left. Actually, that would probably be the 2. So I don't even have to hit into the new one, which I just got yesterday. So that's nice. Italian parsley, just got some new. I just washed it. I still need to dry it off. And unfortunately, my parsley was just banging all spring into early summer, but it was a second-year plant. Parsley is a perennial, but by the second year, it goes to seed. So I don't have any fresh parsley growing, so I had to buy it. 4 cups homemade chicken broth. I have a beautiful chicken stock on the stove that I made last week with the chicken backs, a little bit of fennel, and the leek tops that I put in the freezer a few weeks ago when we did the potato leek soup. So delicious chicken stock. Parmigiano, salt and pepper. It's very simple. Oh, prosciutto. That's what's different. In the beginning, instead of onion, instead of wine, we're going to put some butter with the tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm going to chop this prosciutto very fine and saute that off before the rice goes in. Now, it's already 7 o'clock. This is my supper. I'm not just going to have risotto for supper with flowers in it. I want to have a little protein, so I pulled out some Gulf shrimp. And I think what I thought I would do is, obviously, you don't get all those zucchini flowers without having zucchini. What I'm going to do is take one of these small guys, and I'll chop it into some nice little coins, right? And I'm going to put those in with the shrimp, and I'm just going to season a little salt, cracker black, and some of this year's dried oregano. And all I'm going to do is, when the risotto is done, I'm going to saute this off in a little bit of olive oil, and that will accompany the risotto. That'll be like my main course. This part is improv. The risotto I'm doing by the book, literally. All right, now you know what's going on. I'm going to prep up all the flowers, chop the prosciutto. There's no onion to chop. There's no shallot to chop. So once I get this in this prep, we'll be over at the stove, starting it up. All right, here we go. FYI, I get really excited about this dish. Risotto con fiori di zucca. I'm going to do it in the big cast iron. Might be a little bit of overkill, but when I do risottos, I like a lot of bottom surface area to cook the rice evenly. So, again, we're cutting the recipe in half for the most part. So about a tablespoon of extra virgin. Of course, the book says 2. And by the way, I took out about 7 flowers. So even though we have quite a bit more than the recipe calls for, I did try to bring it back a little. And let's go with 2 tablespoons of butter. Book calls for 4. Actually, that's about 1.5. Let's get a little more butter in there. Remember, I'm going to get my flat paddle so I can go around the cast iron and get every corner going around the rim. The stock is in the back. It's already been heated up almost to the boil, and then I turned it down. I just turned it back up a nudge so it's nice and hot when we start ladling. And now, as soon as this butter's melted, I'm going to put in, and I find this interesting in the Buggiali book, that it says, once the butter is melted, add the prosciutto and the parsley. Remember, I told you about making the clam sauce in Treviso, Italy, and meeting the chef from Venice who said, don't bake the parsley. Parsley is usually added at the end of a dish. It's usually not cooked from the beginning, but I'm following Buggiali. I did this years ago when I first got the book. I don't know if I've cooked it, word for word since. So I'm kind of excited to be doing so. All right, so it says give this about, 3-4 minutes. We want to render out the prosciutto a little. So I'll be back in 3. Actually, I'm checking the book as I go, and the 4 minutes. The 4 minutes is after we add the rice. This said 5 minutes on a low heat, and I'm on very low, which makes sense because that prosciutto has that nice little bit of fat around it, and we want that rendered well into the olive oil and butter. Pull all that flavor out. A beautiful prosciutto flavor. So that is 5 minutes. Now we'll take our rice, and this is what they call toasting the rice in risotto cooking. Coat it with all that fat, and now raise to medium. We're going from 2 up to 4, maybe 4.5, and this is 5 minutes. You want to really toast this rice. And I've talked about that in the past. We've done several risotto episodes besides just this zucchini flowers. And what happens with the risotto is we're toasting it now, and if you look, the whole opacity of the rice is changing. It's cooking and it's hardening almost like a shell on the outside, which is then going to want to allow, when we start adding the broth, to absorb the broth and then release the starch almost in a time release manner. This is how you get a creamy, delicious risotto. So 5 minutes here. I'm going to shut the camera again, and I'll pop it back on when this is ready, and we'll start adding our broth. I think it's very interesting, no wine. After the rice is toasted, I've always been used to splashing in a little wine before the broth. I'm not complaining because, you know, more for me. Pinot Grigio. Alright, 5 minutes is up. The aroma in this kitchen is absolutely impossible to describe. It's unbelievable. The prosciutto, and something I'm finding very interesting and I'm quite encouraged by is the abet of parsley. It's such a different aroma with that cooked parsley. It's getting almost crispy in there. Look at that. In fact, I'm just going to taste a little piece of parsley. Yeah. Who said don't bake it the parsley? It's absolutely fine. And now, like I said, no wine. We're going to start with the hot broth. Start with a 1/2 cup. That's what this ladle is. I might have to go fan. Low fan. Medium fan. I don't have to go high. We're not frying in hot oil, but I don't want that steam coating my kitchen walls and ceiling. We let the broth get absorbed. As the rice begins to dry up, we'll add some more. Oh, I can smell that prosciutto now that the broth is in. And this is a phenomenal broth. I told you, chicken backs, which I roasted first, by the way. I roasted them with some 2025 pulled carrot, a little bit of onion, and some roasted fennel. And no, there was no onion. It was the leeks that I roasted, right? The leek tops from this summer. Incredible stock. Look how dark and rich brown that is. That's a chicken stock. In fact, let's do QC on it. I believe I tasted it after I made it, but the delicacy of the roasted fennel. You can it doesn't come off as fennel, because once you roast it, you know, fennel changes incredibly when you cook it. But there's an undertone from the fennel, the leek greens. It's just a crazy delicious stock. And I've said every time when I make risotto, I sound like a broken record, but I'll always say it. Risotto is all about the stock. Obviously, you know, the other ingredients we're adding, whatever you decide to use it with. Prosciutto, zucchini flowers, whether it's mushroom, seafood. In fact, I have have to get some more rice, and I think I'll get some carnaroli. They didn't have it when I bought this box of arborio. I prefer carnaroli, and I have that lobster shell stock packing my freezer. So I think it's time for a nice seafood risotto. That I won't do for myself. That requires mouths to feed. Now let's see how the rice is coming along. Still very hard, but the flavor is going to be unbelievable. I'm checking because at some point, before it's al dente, but after it passes this completely raw, uncooked stage, you're going to want to add the zucchini flour. See, this flat paddle is nice because I can go right around the outer rim of this pan and get every rice kernel. I think I'm going to go with a half a ladle, 3/4 of a ladle, and as that absorbs, I think when that comes down, we're going to add the flours. See, now it's absorbing slower. The rice is getting saturated, so it's not drying up quite as quickly as the first couple of ladles for. Let's see. Yes, the outer shell is beginning to give it up. It's not soft yet, but it's beginning to cook. You know, I just had a thought. I was thinking the zucchini and shrimp could be added right to the risotto, but I am not going to do that for a couple reasons. One is I want to sear them off in a hot, separate pan, get a little crunch on the shrimp and the zucchini, but also I am not going to stray from this book's recipe. I'm going to do the risotto exactly by the book. Okay, let's add just not quite a half a ladle, and then just stir that around, and I'm going to add the flours. And they're just broken into big pieces, as you can see. I did not chop these fine. Now, salt and pepper. These will begin to wilt down. This is, despite my Beatles joke at the beginning of the episode, this truly is one of my favorite risottos of all time. And trust me, I've made a lot of different risottos. I made them with the zucchini itself, asparagus and lemon, of course seafood. I made mussel risotto, risotto con funghi, right? Porcini mushrooms. It's just a versatile dish, always delicious, but this one is super special. Partially because it uses so many flours and they're usually not readily available in the States. You will see them at the farmers markets, occasionally in the supermarkets. But for us to go out this morning and pull this many fresh flours, it's a real treat. I never take it for granted. Right, the flours are in. Let's continue with our broth. Rice is not quite done yet, but I'm going to taste it now since I seasoned with salt and pepper. Salt is amazing. It's just amazing what it does to food, what it does to every other flavor in the dish. Now I'm going to tell you something else about risotto. You know that we cut this entire recipe in half, every single ingredient. Okay, a little extra flours, but also that was 4 cups of chicken stock, and that's what they call for in the recipe. So technically, it would have been 2 cups, I always find I use more stock than recipes call for. I like my risotto creamy. I do want it al dente, but I want it cooked and creamy. I always use more stock than they ask for. Now, this is delicious with the salt and pepper, but don't forget, at the end, butter and Parmesan. So, we have not exhausted the flavor profile yet. Okay, I used all the broth. Risotto is cooked through, but it's still got a nice al dente outer coating. Perfect. Seasoning, salt and pepper, perfection. I may do a little more pepper, but first, let's now push it back off the heat. And that back burner is now off. That's where the stock was. And on the front burner, let's go up high. We're going to blast our shrimp and zucchini. So, this is now off the heat in the back. Let me get up there. We'll come back on both. There we go. And we will add our Parmesan. Parmigiano Reggiano, grated up. We'll add another tablespoon of butter. Traditional finish for any risotto. And that just stays off the heat and rests. Okay, we'll let that butter melt in. We'll give it another stir when the butter melts. This is coming up to a high heat. Let me get a little olive oil in there. Coat the bottom of the pan. We'll get this nice and hot. I want to get a nice... Oh, by the way, I did add a little white wine to the shrimp. Maybe I should splash a little lemon juice, huh? In the beginning or at the end? Maybe both. Just a few drops in the beginning. We got the white wine. Some garlic would have been nice. Almost like a scampi. But it's a little late for that now. Let's get this in. Now I'm going to go high on the fan, you guys. We're seasoned, remember, salt, pepper, dried oregano. So the risotto, that butter is melting. Quality control for seasoning. Oh man. You know what I'm really noticing in that? Big time? The cooked parsley. Amazing. With the prosciutto. Risotto con fiori di zucca. These young zucchini, just like the shrimp, they barely need to be cooked through. You can put these in raw if you want it. Love them when they're this size. Okay, another 30 seconds to a minute. We're going to be ready to plate this beauty up. Okay. Let's get a little more limone in there. It is shrimp after all. Whoops. Almost a tragedy, but caught it on the lip. Alright, I think the shrimp is good. We don't want to overcook it. Let's give this one final turn. And I'm going to turn off this camera. Let's plate this dish up. Okay, I thought about how I wanted to do this. Again, I'm just home by myself tonight. Very simple. Nothing fancy. Let's get some risotto in the middle of the plate. Those zucchini flowers in there, absolutely beautiful. Let's spread it out. And then I'm going to make a little indentation with this ladle to add our shrimp and zucchini right to the center. You want to get a visual on both, the shrimp and the zucchini. So we'll get some zucchini up on top. Shrimp. Let's take our valuable butter here with the white wine, the lemon. I don't want that going to waste. Let's get that right over the top. And a little bit of fresh parsley to finish it off. We'll use this one as a little garnish here. And then just crack a few of these around with the hands. We don't need to cut it up. Just a few little leaves split on top. Scatter that around. All right, I think we're ready to give it a taste. Of course, this episode is about the risotto, so let's start right there. Get a zucchini flower. You can see it right there, hanging. Oh man, buy the book. The prosciutto, unbelievable. Wow. Let's go for a shrimp. Perfectly cooked. Wow. That's where the white wine belongs. Oregano. A little garlic would have been nice, not gonna lie. But I'm not missing it. I'm not crying. And this fresh picked, young zucchini. There it is, man. Risotto con fiori di zucca. Truly phenomenal. Giuliano Bugiali, Foods of Italy. Highly recommend that book for this dish and about a million others. So, thank you for joining me for another episode of Things I Wait For Every Year. We'll see you all for the next episode. Come on, let's do it.